Hello everyone, welcome back. There has been a lot of buzz around this topic, one nation, one election, of recent. It is common knowledge that the current ruling party in India, that is the BJP, is pushing this agenda of one nation, one election forward, and the opposition is vociferously against it. Is one nation, one election so full of advantages and benefits alone as the BJP is trying to project? If so, then why is opposition so against it? There needs to be a bit of educating ourselves before we take sides. There should also be some educational debates on this topic in the mainstream media. Unfortunately, from what I understand, the debates and primetime news events in the mainstream media are nothing but educative. After all, who wants to be educated? People need to be entertained, isn't it? At least that's what the mainstream media convinces us to believe in. Fortunately for us, there is the social media, which does a better job at analyzing the pros and cons and presenting us with perspectives so that we do not get carried away by the narratives of the politicians who always have vested interest, window dressed as national interest. When I wanted to know more about this topic and when I tried to understand and research this topic, the best of the reference and content came from a few YouTube channels and mostly civil service examinations preparations website. Here is my understanding of one nation, one election. ONOE. It almost sounds like oh no. Alright, henceforth I will term it as oh no in this video. Being no expert on the topic of ONOE, I have to take some reference to base my argument and then build my opinions and arguments based on that reference. So I took an article written by KJ Alphonse, ex-IAS and the former BJP minister from Kerala. On the 5th of September 2023, Mr. Alphonse wrote an article in the Economic Times summarizing the advantages of one nation and one election. Being a BJP man, obviously he presented only one side of the coin, but Mr. Alphonse is a person with credible experience in this subject since he has functioned as a returning officer and also as an election observer for the Election Commission of India. So he has hands on exposure to the challenges of running elections. So, his political alignment notwithstanding, it is still good to read his opinion with an unbiased mind before countering the claims or conceding to it, which is what I am doing. The central idea of ONO is to synchronize the timing of the Lok Sabha and the state assembly election across all the states to reduce the frequency of polls throughout the country. Is this a rabbit that the BJP is pulling out of a hat just because the elections are approaching? The answer is no, because ONO is not a new concept or a topic, but the timing of bringing this up is questionable. ONO is how the elections were conducted in free India once the constitution was framed. ONO was practiced till 1967, but it was disrupted due to various reasons such as defections, dismissals, and dissolutions of government. The cycle was first broken in 1959 after the centre invoked the Article 356 to dismiss the then Kerala government. Subsequently, due to defections and counter defections between parties, several legislative assemblies dissolved post 1960, which eventually led to separate polls for Lok Sabha and state assemblies. So BJP did not pull ONO out from thin air. But like I said earlier, the timing is questionable because there is significant advantage for the ruling party if ONO is put into practice. How? We will come to that in a moment. Some may even argue that this is not the first time the BJP is raising this. It already brought this issue up in 2018. But again, 2019 was an election year. Currently, the assembly polls in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Andhra Pradesh, and Odisha are held along with the Lok Sabha election. The idea of conducting simultaneous elections was advocated in 1999 by the Law Commission headed by BP Jeevan Reddy. Now, let's look at Mr. Alphonse's argument in favor of ONO. Point number one, it enables the government to concentrate on governance once the elections are over. This is a valid point. I completely agree with this because the government is not just about the MLAs, MPs, and the ministers. It's also about the central and state government departments, its officers, public servants, teachers, and many others. Invariably, all of them get pulled into elections whenever an election is conducted. On a lighter note, the BJP will be shooting down its own foot by pushing forward this ONO because the top man will be jobless then. After all, what will he do for 5 years without elections? Anyways, let's focus. Point number two, continuity in policy decisions. This again is a valid argument. The Model Code of Conduct, MCC, comes into effect immediately after the Election Commission announces the election. From then onwards, no new policy decisions can be announced due to the MCC. Therefore, key decisions get delayed at the center, the states, and at the local body level. The concept of MCC comes from learning the hard way after the Election Commission observed how political parties implement mass policing schemes just before the elections in order to sway the voters in their favor, which gives an undue advantage to the ruling party. Hence, the MCC. The MCC came into effect way back in 1960, but over the decades it went through various levels of amendments. The 1991 election saw the most evolved version of the MCC under the supervision of the then Election Commissioner T.N. Session. However, there were still disputes between the center and the states on this matter. It was only in 2001 when a consensus was reached between the center and the states. The MCC is enforced in practice as we have seen, but we have also seen how the political parties circumvent the MCC by smart timing of announcing the schemes and by window dressing schemes that could pass the watchful eyes of the election commission. Third, implementation of ongoing projects gets affected during election periods. As political executive as well as government machinery would be engaged with election duties, neglecting the routine administration. This is a real issue, and I do not differ. It is not just about projects coming to standstill, but also about the time it takes for the projects to restart. So many offices change, offices get transferred, and projects take forever to come back to life. This can be minimized by ONO, truly. Number four, one of the main reasons for political corruption is frequent elections. An enormous amount of money has to be raised by all political parties for every election. In fact, I'm surprised to see this point getting acknowledged because Mr. Alphonse here kind of acknowledges the prevailing corruption. Probably he assumed that he is referring only to the other parties, but inadvertently he has considered that political corruption is an issue in his own party as well. Jokes apart, this is reality. I always believe the first step towards finding a solution is to acknowledge that there is a problem. I'm glad that this problem is getting acknowledged. But it is wishful thinking to assume that ONO will bring down such kind of corruption. Yes, but in spirit, I agree with this point. Number five, expenses incurred by the Election Commission can be reduced if elections are held simultaneously. Prima facie, it looks like that, but this, according to me, is an illusion. We need to take a closer look at the data. We'll come back to this point again. Point number six, a large number of police personnel and paramilitary forces are engaged to ensure that the elections are conducted peacefully. Absolutely right. But this is a point that can be argued both in favor and against. Point number seven, if elections are held in specific periods, then horse trading by the elected representatives can come to an end by and large. Wishful thinking, Mr. Alphonse seems to be scoring a lot of self goals here. I'm sure he knows who is the most popular horse trader for the past many years. He'll be jobless if this claim really comes true. But on a serious note, I do not see the merit in this point because I do not see the connection between horse trading and frequency of elections. Point number eight, frequent elections lead to governments taking policy decisions to woo electorate at every election, which is very true. But that's why the model code of conduct comes into force, isn't it? So therefore, this point is directly related to model code of conduct, and therefore, to me, it looks redundant. Point number nine: the same electoral rolls can be used for all elections. Very valid point. Currently, there are two electoral rolls: one by the election commission, which is used for all the polls in offices of president, vice president, parliament, state assemblies, and legislative councils, and another role by the state for municipal, panchayat, and local body elections. The duplication of efforts can definitely be avoided. I do not understand though why should ONO be the solution for this problem? What is stopping from pushing a single electoral roll anyway? I do not see the connection. Maybe somebody can educate me. Point number 10, it is a global practice to have the central and state elections organized together. This statement may be true, but an invalid argument, in my opinion, because if we take a closer look at the size of the countries that are already implementing this practice, then we may find that the complexity of India cannot be matched by any other country. We cannot just implement something just because it works elsewhere in countries where the population of the entire country is less than the population of a single metro city in India. Therefore, I discount this point altogether. In summary, by and large, there are some very good points mentioned here that makes a very strong case in favor of ONO. Now, let's look at the challenges or disadvantages of ONO. Point number one, what would happen if the central or state government collapses mid-tenure? Or if there is a hung parliament either at the center or at the state level. It has happened before and it may happen again. Point number two, following from the first point, would elections be held again in every state or will there be president's rule imposed? Point number three, ONO is against the idea of federalism. The idea of ONO does not gel with the concept of federalism as it is established under the notion that the entire nation is one, contradicting the content of Article 1 of the Constitution, which envisages that India is a union of states. We have seen the current ruling party disputing this theory of union states, and which is also a controversial point where BJP and the opposition does not see eye to eye. So they would not see this as an issue at all. Point number four, overshadowing the regional interests. The present form of recurrent elections can be seen beneficial in a democracy as it allows voters to vote clearly based on their regional and immediate priorities during the state elections. This clarity may get grayed out when the elections are combined. Point number five, may not be so cost efficient. It is estimated by the Center of Media Studies that between 55,000 and 60,000 crores of money was spent on 2019 Lok Sabha elections, not considering the state assembly election. This data keeps surfacing and gets wrongly quoted again and again as the entire expense incurred by the Election Commission of India, which is not true. Here is the truth. The report talks about the quantum of money spent for elections. The report shows the expenses under the following header. Money spent by the candidates 24,000 crores, political parties 20,000 crores, media and sponsors 3,000 crores, industry and others 3,000 crores, and the government of India, that is the Election Commission of India, 10,000 crores. So, for an electoral roll of 90 crore voters, this works out to approximately 111 rupees per voter for a 5-year term. In other words, a little more than 20 rupees per voter per year. By combining the elections, there are cost savings, definitely is, no doubt, but not to the extent that we would imagine. Point number six, election expenses are not always bad. There is an economic research to suggest that election spending by parties and candidates actually benefits the economy and government's tax revenues by boosting private consumption and serving as a stimulus. Taking up the same corrupt money issue that we stated earlier, in a way, a portion of the corrupt money comes back into the system. Point number seven, which is the most significant according to me, and that significantly overrides any and all of the advantages listed earlier, and that is complacency. ONO leads to complacency in the ruling party, which significantly affects the states where the center and the state is ruled by the same party. There is no motivation to perform, and people will not have any choice but to put up with it for 5 years. This risk, however, remains in other states also, but to a much lesser extent. This, in my opinion, makes ONO a no-no. Let's come to the current situation. Is it possible by the government to push this agenda and get it implemented? Theoretically, yes, which brings us to the last challenge, which is the legal challenge. Even in the event of BJP bulldozing its way through, no pun intended here, and pushing its way through, simultaneous elections are not feasible within the existing framework of the Constitution because amendments are needed. It is said the Constitution, the Representation of the People Act of 1951, and the rules of procedures of Lok Sabha and state assemblies would require appropriate amendment to conduct simultaneous elections. It is also said that at least 50% of the states should ratify the amendment. These are Herculean tasks. Now, I have presented my take on this issue. People may differ, which is natural, and I'm fine with it. But I request you to please be dignified in commenting your views. I'm all ears and eager to learn. Thanks for watching till here. I'll come back with my next topic. Till then, bye bye.